So young Americans are dying more frequently and faster than any other generation in the United States right now. And many of you are asking, well, why is that the case? Well, common sense will tell you that there's a lot of factors that really clearly state why that is making sense, why so many people are dying, especially a younger generation. I'm in Gen Y, and I consider myself extremely healthy. I try to watch my diet and, what I put in my body, the food that nourishes you, and the drinks that you put in you really will determine the quality of your health. But there are external factors that are affecting the well-being of young people in America. And honestly, there's a lot of things that are going against us right now. The poor economic outlook in our country is really causing a lot of stress, particularly on millennials. Millennials is the age group that is dying the fastest right now, according to a study from Boston University, which I'll attach that link on the below on the comment description, so you can review it yourself. But anyways, what I was getting to is I really feel that the economic uncertainty in this country is causing a lot of stress and a lot of hurt in our younger generation. The fact that it is so difficult to attain even a chance to own a house in this economic environment is depressing. It is. The fact that so many people, particularly in the younger generations, are living paycheck to paycheck, that is causing a lot of financial stress. Stress kills. It hurts the body. So, just by that factor alone will say a lot why so many people are dying. And I'm not saying that it's financial insecurity as the sole cause of why millennials are dying. It's just one of the factors. But I also think that because we're so financially insecure, and I'm referring to the millennial generation, I also think that because of that financial insecurity, that's leading to many millennials to work harder, okay, and to overwork themselves. And what I mean by overworking is that we're working longer hours. That causes also undue stress to the body. These are factors that I think are really, really, causing some issues in the millennial group. So financial insecurity is a big one. I think we're an overworked society. That plays a huge role. The fact that so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, that forces you to work longer hours to make ends meet, and that's just adding unimaginable stress to your body. Now, factor that in with unforeseen global events that's causing stress as well, such as the sickness in 2020. Our generation's been through a lot, from 9/11 to mass shootings to a tumultuous political environment. I think that is also a factor that is really causing a lot of undue stress. And I keep harping the word stress because that is the ultimate killer in society. When you're stressed and when your body is overworked and always on the go, and not in a good way, that is going to cause you to die. That's just the plain hard truth of that. And another factor too and this is just my observation too, is that the first point that I mentioned, that the importance of having a quality diet, a quality meals, the food that you intake in your body is so important. But similarly to that point, I also think that the food that we consume is garbage, at least in the United States, especially if you eat fast food. You have all these, genetically modified ingredients that are coming into food that are just making us fat. They're making us sick, obese, consumed with diabetes, and this causes all these like chronic health issues, and the thing is, the millennial generation, while we're still young, we're not getting any younger. We're older now. So there's consequences that happen when you put these garbage foods in your body. So that's a big factor too. But in addition to trying to follow a good, healthy food regimen, and this goes back to the affordability issue. Because millennials are living paycheck to paycheck, okay, we're spending most of our income on rent just to survive, just to have a shelter. What's left over at the end of the month? Like, whatever money that you have left over, you can't purchase quality food. If purchasing steak, good quality vegetables, organic ingredients, that costs money at the grocery store. It's crazy. Like, in order to survive, and especially if you're by yourself and not living with anyone else, you got to live off of ramen. And that is full of garbage, full of sodium, full of preservatives. That's going to just make you sicker. It's like a catch-22. It's just like our generation, we're living in an era of desperation. And it's a no-brainer why so many in this generation are dying off so quickly and so fast. It boils down essentially to financial insecurity, but it's spreading into other things. That the fact that we're not consuming good quality food. It's just a terrible situation. I think that something has to be done in this country where we're given a chance, at least in this generation, in Gen Y, Millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, to give them a chance in this country, because the economic picture is just so dark right now. And I don't think it's gonna last like that forever. I'm an optimist. I like to see the glass half full, and try to see some real hope in the situation. Nothing lasts forever, good or bad. But yeah, just the fact that it's so hard to afford buying a house. It's a moral killer. And when you have really nothing to look forward to and you're just living day by day, it's easy to feel that desperation, that hopelessness. And that's the kind of sentiment that I think a lot of people in my age group are feeling. It's like, what's the point if you're living paycheck to paycheck? Like, what is there to look forward to? And that's not healthy. And I just think that plays a huge part in why so many people are dying, especially the young people in this country. It's a shame. But this is why it's so important, no matter how much you're making in a job, or even if you're just in a bad situation, try your best to live on less than you make. If you can find a roommate to live with that roommate, and really just focus on predictable expenses, focus on your food, shelter, don't get caught up in unnecessary, financial burdens such as, expensive cars, unnecessary, gadgets that are just gonna, be time wasters and, just a burden on your time and finances. But anyways, that's my rant. I hope your situation gets better wherever you're at. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I post videos every few days or so I'd appreciate the support. Until next time.